Well, here we are in the glorious sunshine at Harry Eustace's yard, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Hayley Turner. Hayley, thank you for joining me. We're going to be talking today about bits in your career and, importantly, your role within the industry, because of course you've been leading the way for female jockeys. Now, on the topic of women, let's just talk about the football. So, you follow football?
Yes, I do. I support Notts County for all my sins. So
with the women, and obviously the women playing for England, they're doing so well at the moment. What's your opinion with the way they're leading the way for females in the football industry?
It's great. I think it's just going to be a process to, get everyone sort of familiar with it and getting used to it. But I think the way that they've started, unfortunately not winning the World Cup, we got so close. And it was great because I was riding out one morning, I think it was at Andrew Boulding's, and I had a bit of a window before I went racing, so I went to one of the David Lloyd gyms, and I walked in, and loads of women were all sat there glued to the TV watching the semi-final, and so I sat and watched it with them, and there was a little girl, she must have only been about 6, and she did not take her eyes off the TV the whole time. And then one of the girls got a yellow card, and she was like, what, saying to her mum, why did that, and it was like she was so into it. And considering it's only like the first few years, it's been like people have hooked onto it quite quickly, so it's just going to grow.
Yeah, and it's great to see as well. And I don't know if you saw on the news this morning with the women's team coming home, and there was no fanfare for them to arrive to, so there's a lot of uproar with that, and I think it'd been quite nice for people to welcome them back as well, and show the appreciation for what they're doing for sport.
Yeah, but it's like it is the first time it's becoming bigger, and I think as the years go on, it'll happen for them. I'm sure it wasn't any, it wasn't people disapproving with their efforts at all, but it's just like you'd automatically do it for the guys because we've been doing it for years and years. But and it's just something I'm sure will be picked up with
and keep on growing.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on the debate over women and men? Obviously, huge difference in pay gaps and stuff. This is just in general life. What's your opinion on that? Because in horse racing, this is the only sport really where women and men are competing on a plain level field, right? So then obviously other parts of work and stuff like that, women and men, there's still a big gap in pay.
Yeah, there is, and it's sort of going back to the olden days where women were at home raising the children and being a good wife, and since then how much it's progressed and changed, and women are just they're working and they're becoming ambitious, and they can lead their own lives now, and it's amazing how much it's just snowballed in such a short space of time within sports particularly. I think that for example, the female footballers, they aren't going to get paid as much as the guys because they've not been it's not progressed into a big enough event. So how many more viewing figures are the male footballers going to have compared to the females? And when they build it up and it becomes level, they'll get more money. And it's certainly not for anything sexist. It's just because it's not as popular at the moment. So
how long do you reckon that will take? Do you reckon it'll be in the next 10 years where, because the speed it's growing, like you said now, the way that the women's football team is getting so popular, do you reckon maybe in the next 10 years they'll reach the same level as males?
Definitely. I mean, if you could, in racing, it was when I started, there was very few female jockeys, and I'm still doing it now and enjoying it, and because I've been doing it for such a long time, I've been doing it 20 years and a bit more, and it's amazing the difference from when I first started riding to the standard and the amount of girls that are riding now. And it's just, in another 10 years, it's just going to be even better. And I think it's probably frustrating for a lot of women in the sports, but it will grow, and they just need to keep doing their best, and things will change. So
what was it like for you as a woman coming into the horse racing industry? Was it quite nerve-wracking? Were you nervous?
Not really. I think that I've always had a lot of support from the trainers that I've been riding for, and I think I had to sort of earn my respect in the weighing room. But I think that was as much for like if I was a man or a woman, you have to earn your respect off people in the weighing room. And yeah, it's a question I've been asked so many times, what's it like being a woman in a man's world? And from the inside, I've always found, I've never compared myself, I've never put myself, I'm a girl and they're guys, so, you know, this should be different. I've always hung out with them and ridden with them as if, I'm just one of them. And I don't know, that just happened automatically for me. And I think sometimes, if they get on the defence and, it's like, just get on with it and let my riding do the talking, or if the footballer, let their playing do the talking. And for any sport, just as long as you're doing your best, there's nothing more you can do.
Did you have to have a bit of a thick skin as well? Did you not have your guard down or anything? Because I know you said you went into it almost with confidence, but did you have a thick skin, like a bit of banter and stuff like that? Oh God, yeah, I've got thick skin. You want to hear, the banter that they have in the weighing room is just, they'll always keep you grounded. No, if you start doing well and you get a bit cocky, and not in a nasty way, it's all good humoured, and male or female, it's quite strange because we're self-employed, we all race against each other, but in the weighing room it's almost like a bit of a sanctuary that we all hang out together and we walk out having a laugh, and then you're suddenly racing against each other and you come back in, and there's a little bit of conflict occasionally, which you get in any sports, but no, we all get on well pretty much. There's always someone that you don't like that much, but it's always been a nice place for me to be in the weighing room. And I suppose if there is any tension, you just professionally just brush it off and crack on with the job. Yeah. I mean, or you just say to someone, why, watch the replay with them. Why did you just? I think because I don't need telling off anyone now because I've been doing it such a long time. But if one of the younger jockeys makes a mistake, and you just point it out to them without being aggressive or angry, and they actually appreciate you helping them. And also you've got the stewards that have got cameras, and they'll pick up on it if it is sort of below the belt. What's it like being one of the older jockeys in the industry? Obviously you've got the knowledge over new fresh talent coming in, but do you ever get imposter syndrome creeping in and you have to sort of think, no, I've got this, I've got the knowledge, even though there's fresh young talent coming through the ranks? There's always been fresh young talent, and it's since I've got older, I've appreciated them being there, rather than when I was younger it was more their competition, and I don't want them to sort of tread on my turf, that sort of thing. But now I just think I've got enough confidence in myself that I can compete with them, whether they're younger or older, and I know the horses and the tracks better than anyone, so there's no reason for me to get sort of get chippy about it. So yeah. Do a lot of the younger generation come to you for advice? Yeah, they will do, particularly the girls, and I always try and help out when I can. But I think the girls that come through, that there's a lot that have come and gone in the time that I've been riding, and it's always the ones with thick skin, and you can tell when you're going to get a good one come along and stay, because they've got similar attitudes to me. They might be really nice and sweet, but actually you can tell that they've got a really sort of competitive, driven side to them. So got the fight within. Yeah. So looking at up and coming talent in the female jockeys, who have we got coming up that you're really taking a shine to? You think they're going to be something special? I think the girl. Are we talking about females? Yeah. Females. So Safi Osborne, she's. I actually, when she first started,
I thought she's good and she's very confident. I think she's only 21, but she's she comes across like she's years older, the way she can talk to people and network, and she's been brought up in a racing background, and so she's got a lot of knowledge on that. But this year particularly, she's ridden out her claim, and she's become stronger, and she's riding more, but she has a jockey coach as well who she still goes to all the time, and she's just improved a lot, and she's riding against the guys now without her claim, and she's doing being really competitive with them. So
looking back at your younger self, what advice would you have given yourself going into the industry?
I probably got, it's quite easy to get disheartened because you have waves, like you're flying along and you're riding so well, and then you go for a dip, like after an injury or something, and I found it difficult I was frustrated because sometimes you can do everything right, but you can't get on the horses with the ability to win, and you're not getting the chances, and I think that frustrated me a lot. And so yeah, I wish I'm fine with it now, but it's something that I wish I'd been able to deal with a bit better at the time.
Yeah, I suppose it's difficult when you're in the moment. You can't sort of say to yourself everything's going to be all right, it's going to work out. Some of the things you look back on. So ups and downs within the industry, how did you deal with those? Like you said, with these setbacks, I know you said looking back you could have done things differently and told yourself, but what kept you going and your eye on the goal?
I think that I could see, it's like after I'd had an injury, and I came back, and I think I came back too soon because I wasn't riding with confidence as much, and I think other people noticed it, and that's like when you start getting frustrated, and what I've learned since then is to you can only do your best, and if getting frustrated it's just taking energy away from you that you don't need to, and it turns around, like it comes in waves, and it's like you have a quiet spell and then you're flying again, and it's just, I've learned to manage sort of mentally that sort of thing by I've done it, I've had a bit of help, a bit of therapy. I've had, I read the right books, and sometimes I find that doing your mind management is more important than actually going to the gym and doing that work, because it's not always that interesting and fun, but it's good for you to do it. And I think the hard thing about our job is it's quite a lonely place when you're sat in your car driving to York back, riding out in the morning, and then you're hanging around all day, and then riding at Kempton in the 9 o'clock. You've got to get up at 5:15 the next day, and you're driving there and back, and you're constantly tired, and it's like a lot of thinking time, and that's where it's difficult, I think, and particularly if you're not getting the results at the same time, it becomes mentally hard work. And I'd always advise any jockey to work on the mind management as much as anything else.
Yeah, it's another type of help you need to look after. It's really important, isn't it? So social media, it can be good and it could be bad. Do you think it's good for your industry? I'm sure you've seen changes in jockeys and people in the industry with social media, and the reason why I say is it good and is it bad, because obviously on the good side you can promote your skill, your work, and promote it to a wider audience, but of course you got the other point of trolls and things. So what do you think?
I think in racing I was one of the first people onto social media, just because my brother-in-law got me on it. He's quite a clever man as far as it comes to sort of social media and stuff, and he was like, "Oh, you want to get on this Twitter?" And so I got on it, and it was very alien to everyone in racing, but I just plugged away at it, and then slowly everyone else has picked up on it. I always think in racing everyone's a bit slow to pick up on stuff like that, but it's great to see now it's sort of in full swing. All the trainers have cottoned on, the jockeys are brilliant, and I just find it's great for the industry because it's easier for like a non-racing audience to follow people, and I think it's easier to follow a sport when you're following a character in the sport. So, you know, like you've got your Tom Marquand and your Holly, and everyone follows them and they know what they're doing, and then they'll watch the racing because they know them as people and the characters come across on the social media. And, you know, you might follow a yard like Harry Eustace yard, and you know, you'll see them riding out and you'll see that they've got a runner, and it's just good for the industry, so it's easier for people to. I think racing is quite a difficult sport to follow because there's so much to it, but it just makes it a bit easier and lighter and more fun.
Have you ever had anybody troll you on social media?
God, yeah. Well, actually, before even social media, I used to get, some guy used to write to me from prison.
No way.
Yeah, and it was, I think it was Brixton Prison, and I don't know how they got to me, but it would like be jockey Hayley Turner Newmarket, and I mean the Royal Mail did a great job of getting it to me, and it was really, really, really weird stuff. He actually sent me a spliff in the post once, which is a bit random.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was like threats about my nana and like just really crazy stuff, and I think I actually ended up getting the police involved with that, and anyway he got warned, and that was it. But that was before social media, but now social media is so much easier, so it's easier for them to, you know, sit there and troll you, and when you get beat on a favourite, that's the worst, you know, what were you doing on that, you can't ride. And yeah, I think one of my favourites was someone called me a dirty midget whore.
Really?
But the thing is, I'm very good because I just take it on the chin, and it's one of those. I have a group chat with my sisters and my mum and dad, and I just take a screenshot and send it to them, and we just joke about it. And I think that's just me having thick skin, and I can see how some people aren't like that, and they take it personally, and it shouldn't be allowed. You know, it's one of those, like, the people that do it, you just think, I don't get offended, because the people that can sit there and do it, like, do I care what they think anyway? And I don't, so it's just but yeah, it's just too easy for them now, isn't it? Yeah. Do you get it?
I don't.
No.
And I said to someone once, I said, I don't know what's wrong with me because people are not sending me abuse. I said, I don't want it.
Oh, we can arrange that.
Nobody can arrange it. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because you see, like you said, after a ride, and you just see on Twitter negativity and all this horrible stuff, and I can't imagine what it's like to be that person. I mean, do you purposely not look at your phone after a race, or is it just, I mean, like you said, it's quite nice in a way that you've got a good support network around you, but then thinking about other people that may be tempted to look through and then take it personally, I can imagine it's quite hard.
Yeah, I think sometimes you'll come in and you're like, oh, didn't give that a very good ride, and you're just like, oh, I wonder what everyone else is thinking, and you'll go and they'll be like, you know, what were you doing on that, you moron, and all that. That's a polite way, they say worse things than that, but and yeah, I suppose you do, but again, it's, you know, for me, I've the amount of horses and races I've ridden in, like, I know when I've done something wrong. I don't need someone to tell me, and I'll be the first one to put my hands up. But more often than not, they're wrong and I'm right, and it's just like, think what they like. They've not ridden the horses and they don't know, and I think that's what any jockey that rides should just be the same. Like, you know, someone's probably sat there eating a pot noodle with a pint of cider next to them in the mum's living room.
Man with a pot noodle in a chair with,
in his nana's living room. They're sort of sat there, you know, just abusing you, and it's like, do you care what he thinks? No. So,
is there anything in the racing industry that can help people with stuff like that happen? So if you've got a really big threat, who do you go to? Oh,
we get loads of help. We're really lucky. So we've got the Professional Jockeys Association, who's a team that support the jockeys with a number of things, and that's one of them. And they also help, you know, if you want, you know, if you need to work on your mental health, or help with your car insurance, or help with anything, you know, they're there for you. And yeah, you know, you're always encouraged to report it, especially if it's, you know, if it's bothering you. So yeah, we are very lucky.
You mentioned before faces in the racing industry, obviously helping people follow the sport. Frankie Dettori on his farewell tour. I can imagine it's very hard to leave the industry and what you've done for so long. I know he'll probably do TV stuff, but who do you think will move into his shoes as someone that people will know? Because isn't it crazy that people outside the sport, they all know who Frankie Dettori is, even if they don't follow it?
Yeah, and Frankie's been so good for our sport, and he's done it all, before the social media, and he's done it. He's, like you say, he's one person. If you walk down the high street and you said, name one person in horse racing, Frankie Dettori, and then who? And they'd be like, maybe like Tony McCoy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I just think there's a number of people now that I think ITV have certainly helped with broaden the audience of horse racing, and like we said, one of the horses is getting angry. I think that the social media is helping broaden the audience. The difficult thing is when you're riding, you ride every day and you can't organise anything because you don't know where you are. So it's, what day are we on? So I won't know. I only knew after 10 o'clock where I'm going to be on Thursday. So I don't know where I am on Friday until 10 o'clock tomorrow. And it's really difficult to plan your day and commit to stuff. Like doing this interview, there's like 1 or 2 days of the year where there's no racing, not including Sundays. And one of the days is today, so I've been able to plan this, but it's very rare that you get a chance to have any sort of life. So I find it's always difficult for jockeys to do all the promotional stuff that Frankie's managed to do, when they're trying to be good at the job at the same time.
Do you think there's too much work for jockeys, a lot of pressure having to ride and travel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, particularly now it's hard because the Sunday racing has become a thing, which I certainly am in favour of. I know a lot of people that aren't, but I always think, racing's an entertainment sport. Sunday's a day where, everyone's off work and they can sit and enjoy it more. We are competing against the football and other things as well, but I think that the most difficult thing for me is the evening racing that they have on during the week. So, you'll be at Kempton in the 9 o'clock and then you have to get up the next day, ride out first thing in the morning, you drive back to Newmarket, your alarm will go up at 5, you're riding out, and then you're not racing until that evening, at Newbury. And so, although you have a big chunk of the day off, you're getting to bed very late and getting up very early. And unless you're really good at sleeping hours and hours during the day, which it's quite hard to do, it just gets on top of you when you do it day after day. But I personally think the best thing to do would be give the jockeys a day off in the week, or not just the jockeys, the trainers, everyone. For example, today there's no flat racing, so no one's got to go travelling. I've been able to, little stupid things like, I need to book in to get my hair done, or I need to get my car serviced, or I need to go and visit my mum and I need to tell her when I'm coming. And one day off a week, when it's a Tuesday, no one's going to miss the racing on a Tuesday, everyone's at work. A day off like this would be perfect to keep doing, and then it makes it easier for us to manage the long days and the weekend working, if we know that we've got a day when we can catch up with stuff.
Yeah, because it's a lot of pressure, especially when you're self-employed, to work, to earn money, to stay relevant and things like that. Do you think there's too much racing?
Yeah, I do. I think there's far too much racing. It's I think there's too much bad racing in the week, which is, what you go to Kempton, there's no one there, but it's there for the bookmakers, and we're racing it, we're racing late in night, and I just think they could just dilute the lower grade racing slightly. I think that the big races that they have on at the weekends has been a massive success with the TV figures and the attendance. What I really liked the other day was when they did the Shergar Cup, and the attendance was 24,000 and 19,000 people went in before the racing, so they didn't just go in for the concert after, which is what we always think attracts people, is they rock up at the races after the racing to go and watch, you know, Craig David and people like that. But the attendance was sort of 19, and the families were all there to watch the racing, 19,000 people, which was brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned the Shergar Cup. Now before we go into that, you mentioned a good point with having concerts after racing. Excuse me. With things like having concerts to attract people to the race courses, obviously it's great to get more people into the courses and you know, spending money and stuff like that, but do you think there should be more emphasis on the education to get people into the sport rather than the entertainment?
I don't know how you do it though. I think that, like, education on horse racing is something you learn from maybe watching ITV. They're always very good at explaining things. And you probably didn't need to be at the races to do that, but like I say, things that are a bit more of a novelty, like the Shergar Cup, seem to work really well. And I think it's having the characters to follow. Like the Shergar Cup, there's the girls team, so you're wearing a pink cap because you want the girls to win, or Europe, so you've got, you know, your blue flag, and people are learning through, you know, stuff like that. But it's yeah, I think the Newmarket nights, I think a lot of people just go for the music, because when I'm driving out, you know, I've been in the third or fourth race, everyone's coming in and it's like, you're missing the racing. So yeah.
So you've been involved in the Racing League and obviously the Shergar Cup, so both of those competing as a team. How do you think that has affected people outside the sport? Do you think it's encouraged them to come racing and enjoy it in a different way than you would regular racing?
Yeah, I think so. And it's just new and trying something different. And the Shergar Cup's been, every year it's been a success. And I think they do a great job. I think that the Racing League, you know, it's going to improve because they're learning as they go along, and it's not been doing, you know, they've not been doing it as long as the Shergar, but it's certainly sort of, you get, you know, I'm walking down the high street and someone's, oh, go on Team Scotland. And, you know, it's like, I am actually a quarter Scottish. I don't know how I ended up, I do find that a bit strange. Like, I'm Team Scotland and Andrew Boulding's on my team. He's like Southampton, Newbury way. And James Ferguson lives in Newmarket, so it's quite strange. Like the first year they did it, I thought it was quite good because Andrew Boulding, Richard Hannon, they're mates, and they created their own team and picked their own jockeys, and I thought that worked well. And then they've kind of changed it round a bit. So I'm Team Scotland, and it's just, obviously I'm not Scottish, and neither is Andrew and James. So it's but it seems to get a lot of viewing and it gets support, and for us the prize money's great. You know, we get an appearance fee for going, which is always good. So
despite the negative feedback that can appear on social media about it, do you think that it will continue?
Yeah, I think it certainly needs tweaking a little bit, but anything like that I think is great for racing. And you know, no matter what you do, not everyone's going to be happy. There's always going to be people grumbling. I mean, it's like the Shergar. What is wrong with the Shergar? It's good prize money, it's good attendance, people love watching it, it's good fun, it's you know, but the people still grumble, and they're going to. So, but they keep getting the results that they want. So yeah.
Speaking of prize money, obviously something that is an issue in horse racing. What do you think should be done about that? Because you've got a big gap, obviously, in the lower end of the scale. And then, for instance, tomorrow's racing at York in the Juddmonte International, 500,000 for runners. It's tricky, isn't it? Because with the economic crisis that's happening in our country, how can trainers as well stay afloat if there's minimal prize money and they can't compete at the level of some of the bigger trainers?
Yeah, that's the difficult thing, particularly the jockeys as well. You know, we're driving around for, you know, if you go for one ride, you don't earn any money, because by the time you've paid your valet and your petrol money, you know, you're not making any money to go racing. So unless you get some prize money out of it, it's you know, there's a lot of days I've gone to work for nothing. Some days, if you're going that far, you'll even pay to go to work. It's just But that's the thing with probably at the lower level, there's too much racing, and it's getting spread thinly around, and I don't know, it's a shame, and it's hard to see light at the end of the tunnel, because I don't know how they can improve it. Other countries like France, manage to work it quite well, because they have like a tote over there, I believe. But if I'm honest, I'm not that knowledgeable on the depths of it, so I don't want to go into it too much. But yeah, if they could just dilute the numbers at the lower grade more, I think that would help.
Other things as well that are affecting the industry recently, the talk of the whip. Now, I want to ask you, as an equestrian as well, because you started off show jumping, right? So the whip, the crop, whatever you call it in every discipline, it's mainly in every discipline, and it's a safety aid. What are your opinions on the whip and the changes that you as jockeys have had to make?
I think for people outside of racing and outside of horses, it like, I can see they're thinking we're battering the horses, and it's just doesn't, if you saw a whip, it's cushioned, it's been modified, and there's so many rules now that are about hitting the horse in the right place, the number of times, and I think it's good that the authorities are keeping it at the forefront of their minds, of making it safe, making it everybody's happy, and the new rules, I think, work well to a certain point. I think that the punishment for the going over the number of times is fair, because it's harsh, but if you're going to win a race, this is an example. I rode my first Royal Ascot winner, and I used my whip too many times, and I got banned for 8 days. If someone said to me, you won't get the 8-day ban, but you lose the race, would you hit the horse 8 times again? And I would have done. And it's, I know that the whip isn't hurting the horse, and but I think that now the rules are what they are, and if I was going to hit my horse 8 times and I'd be banned for a month, would I have done it? No, because I can't afford to have a month off work. And I think that that's the difference, and that's why at the higher level the days have definitely increased. Is I think it's good. I think that the thing that they need to slightly change is, that you get punished quite hard for not giving your horse half a stride longer to respond, and I think that that's the sort of thing that becomes a habit, or it's a human error, and I think that those sort of things are, perhaps you could, this is what you're doing wrong, you're hitting the horse in the wrong place. Go away, educate yourself, go and practice, and then if they do it again, then increase the penalty, and if they do it again, then increase it. But there's certain things I think that they need to be more lenient about. But the number of times, if you hit them over 6, then in a big race, I think it's fair that they get a hard penalty.
Is it difficult when you're riding in the race and adrenaline is rushing, and especially with changes, having to also remember your tactics, concentrate on what you're doing? Muscle memory, is that difficult to try and remember all these things? No, I don't think that the number of times to hit a horse is 6, and fair enough if you go 1 over, but I think that it's so simple, and it's taken a bit of getting used to, and they gave us a bedding in period, which wasn't the best time to do it, because it wasn't a busy time, so not everyone was getting in the rides that they usually would, and so that would have been helpful. But 66 times, it's not rocket science. So there has been jockeys that have got big bans, but they won't do it again, and there's a lot of very good jockeys that haven't done over 6, and they know, and so yeah. Along the lines now of equine welfare, and this is an equine welfare debate that in the racing industry, it's hit and miss, because animal rising, and obviously we've been hit twice, 2 different occasions, the National and the Derby, with protesters, but animal rising, What do you think should be done about protesting? Because obviously the right to protest is fine, but when it ends up endangering animals, riders, people, what do you think should be done about this?
I mean, it's a terrible shame that it even comes to it. I mean, you're sat here in the yard and there's a horse over there that's getting bathed, and they won't even allow cold water on the horse's back because, it might not like it. So it's having a warm, soapy bath, and it's, been bedded down with a bag of shavings that, cost a fortune because they've got no dust in them, and they're eating the best feed that you can buy, and they're getting turned out, and they're just so well looked after, and they're doing, the horses race, and they love to race, and it's, you couldn't have them cared for any better. Like, even my dog Frank doesn't get as much love as these horses do, and it's like, it's so frustrating to see that they're using racing to degrade, like it's a bad thing, and it's just completely not at all. And using, I think they were on about putting down nails at Epsom, the protesters spreading nails on the grass just to stop the racing, and it's just like, what, it just frustrates me, and I don't know. I mean, I think they did a great job managing it at Ascot, and it's just a load of nonsense, really, if you ask me. It's a bunch of people attention seeking, just jumping on the snooker tables, like, what, get a life, do something more productive. It's just frustrating for me. I don't see the point in it, and I'm probably rattled a few cages by saying that, but I don't think using horse racing is a worthy way of making a point. So.
Not when you've got beagles being used for makeup testing and stuff like that, and there's plenty of other things that we could be looking at.
I mean, I'd love to bring them here and see how well cared for these horses are. It's just, it's just crazy, the amount of care and money that goes into looking after these animals. And anyway.
Do you think it's a good idea to actually invite them along? I know people say we shouldn't pander to people's opinions, but just from an educational point of view, do you think it would be a good idea if there was an open invite? They probably wouldn't come, I would say, but just to say, why don't you come along and I'll show you?
Yeah, I think people would be worried that they'd do some, if they go and do stuff like spreading nails on the racetrack and, just stupid things, you probably wouldn't want them in your yard, because you'd be worried that they're going to, these animals are so settled and relaxed and happy. You don't want people like that coming in, and they do need educating, and that would be a way of doing it, but, would you want them in your yard? I wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
If there was one thing you could change in racing for the good, what would it be?
Good question. Prize money, I think. I mean, I don't know where you'd start, but it is, the amount of work that goes into it, as being a jockey, like professional sports people, comparing it what we earn to what other sports people do, it's rather frustrating.
Any plans for when you retire, if you have plans to retire after you reach your 1,000 mark?
I actually don't plan to retire, because I did it once for a year or year and a half, and I just love riding so much, and I think whilst I'm still doing well, I'm still, paying my mortgage off, I'm going to keep doing it until, something will come along that will force my hand to do something else, but at the moment I'm going to keep doing it.
Do you think you'll ever completely leave racing? And as I say that, I know it sounds ridiculous, because when you've done horses all your life, it'd be probably impossible to leave them completely, but would you ever consider doing something else outside of racing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm quite lucky in the way that my family aren't in racing, and they're not into horses at all, and as I've gone through my journey in racing, I've always had them to go to step out the racing bubble, and they keep me in the real world slightly, and I always find I'm quite adaptable to different circumstances, and I think I always love doing new things and meeting new people and look for a challenge. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't rule it out, but I think horse racing will always have a little part of my life.
Would you consider doing more TV than your riding, or are you happy doing a balance?
I like doing a balance at the moment, and I'm quite lucky that the ITV racing team always, have me on when they can, and when I'm, when racing allows me to. So at the moment it's a nice balance. Yeah.
Earlier you did speak about how ITV, it's great to get people involved in racing and it's a bit more laid back. Is there anything that you would tweak within any media outlet to encourage more people to engage with the sport?
I always think I think they're doing a great job, ITV. There's always quite a lot of fun and banter on, at the races, and they're quite light-hearted. Like I think at the Shergar Cup they had us all playing darts, and I did such a bad job. And fun things like that. I think mixing the racing up with other sports, it kind of draws people in a little bit. So fun things like that I'd always be up for.
I think we should end on a career highlight for you.
Dream Ahead. It was a while ago now, but yeah, my first Group 1 winner, which was just down the road at Newmarket. So yeah.
Do you still get excitement? I know it would be exciting, but do you still get the same buzz as you did when you first started?
Yeah, it's weird. It's crazy, but I absolutely love it. It's even having a winner at Wolverhampton I get a buzz from doing. So yeah, and I just love, like, next week it's the York Ebor Festival, and I'm just excited about having a few rides there and being involved in it. So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
There we are, everybody.
Thank
Hayley
you.
Turner.